It's John chapter 8 and the story of the adulterous woman. Jesus does this wild thing. He begins to bend down and write in the dirt. What was he writing and why was he writing it? We're going to talk about it. The story of the adulterous woman. Most of us are familiar with that story. It is a very unfortunate title, I think, because really the last thing that this story is about is this poor woman and the sin she got caught in. Many have taught on this. Many sermons have been preached about this and around this, and all the points have been brought out. Where was the man? Obviously, he probably wasn't in this crowd of guys. I've heard that one of these men may have been the guilty man. I don't believe that. These were the Bible thumpers of the day. They probably wouldn't have liked having an adulterous guy in their midst either. This was not about the adultery. This was every bit about the attempt to trap Jesus, right? If you haven't read this story in John 8, which you probably have, or you wouldn't be searching out videos on this subject. If you haven't read this story, pause right now, go read the story in John chapter 8. Actually, it might be better if you read John 7 and 8. Okay? Pause now. First, let's go to Numbers chapter 5. Numbers chapter 5 is obviously Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, fourth book in the Old Testament. Has everything to do with the law, and we find that the description of what to do in the case of an adulterous situation, or in this case really it's a jealous husband. Numbers chapter 5 is all about a husband that suspects his wife is cheating on him. And it's an odd story. If you want to read that too, you can pause right now. But Numbers chapter 5, the prescription. If a man believes his wife is cheating, he brings her to the priest. The priest has to write their names in the dust of the temple. That is according to legend. Now, scripture also says that the dust is added to a special drink. She's made to consume it. And if she's guilty, then the curse befalls her, and she swells up and probably dies a miserable death, or is turned over to the priest for the judgment to be passed upon her. Otherwise, if she's innocent, this is a divine type of dust, then nothing happens. It's an interesting story. Go read it. It's very akin to the story of the golden calf. If you'll recall that one, when Moses came down from the mountain and found he had just received the law, and he found that the people were dancing around a golden calf that his brother had everything to do with making. Well, the penalty was to grind up that golden calf into a very fine dust, throw it into the stream, the river, and they were made to drink it. And it killed everybody who was guilty. It was a bad scene. Again, that was a penalty for a type of adultery. God considered Israel his bride. Therefore, when they were worshiping this golden calf, they were committing adultery, in effect. So here we have dust. Why dust? Well, there's a lot of reasons why dust. Dust is the lifeless part of man. It's the food of the snake, if you will. But here it is, again, arising in this story in John chapter 8. John chapter 7, again, that's part of the context we need. John chapter 7 is about the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, the Feast of Tabernacles is an imploration to God from the Israelites for water during the dry season and light, because we're late in the fall, harvest is over, we're going to need water. We're entering a dry season, but it's going to be crucial that we get some water now for the planting season that's coming, okay? But also we're entering into the shorter days, so we're beseeching God for water, and we're beseeching God for light. And we have Jesus standing up in the midst of that crowd that's there to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. And he says, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me, and I will give him rivers of living water. Out of his heart will flow rivers of living water, it says. So Jesus is making a proclamation here that everything that they are beseeching God for, he is, which is an awesome thing. I am that well of water. I am that fountain of water. And then we have the story immediately of the adulterous woman at the end of John chapter 7 and into John chapter 8. And then right after that story is Jesus standing up, same temple, and saying, I am the light of the world. So Jesus is making a very large statement here. What you're beseeching God for, I am. And it's just a powerful conglomeration. John has crafted this purposefully, I believe. But you have to understand that Jesus is saying, I am the fountain you are praying for. All right? Now, we can go backwards to Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 13. Let's do that. And I'll post it. Jeremiah 17, 13. O Lord, the hope of Israel, all who forsake you shall be put to shame. Those who turn away from you shall be written in the earth, for they have forsaken the Lord, the fountain of living water. Wow. All those who forsake you will be put to shame. Those who turn away from you will be written in the earth. I think what Jesus was doing was writing the names of the guilty in the earth. And it says, let me read this. John chapter 8 says, they said to test him that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. That's verse 6. Now, who did he write? I think that he wrote a name there because of Jeremiah 17:13. Whose name did he write? I think maybe he wrote hers, to their very pleasant reaction, I'm sure. Oh, he's going to admit that she's guilty. But here it says, and as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. So he's deflecting guilt, because that's what they are trying to perpetrate, is guilt. In verse 8, and once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. What did he write there? I believe he begins to write their names right there. Why is that important? Because when we go back to Numbers chapter 5, and the legendary part of that, the guilty parties' names were written in the dust. Both the guilty parties' names were written in the dust. Why in the dust? Because their names would be blotted out. The dust would stir and their names would be no more, just like they would be on the earth. They would execute them for adultery. And Jesus had a way of just deflecting guilt. So what was he writing? I believe he was writing their names in the dirt. Now, was she guilty? Absolutely. Were they every bit as guilty? Absolutely. But Jesus didn't come to to condemn us because we're all guilty. He didn't come to condemn us. So, I think that's the best answer. I think that's the only answer. I believe Jesus was just a master at redirecting the guilt that men like to throw at one another. And he wanted to make sure we all understood. You're all guilty. None of you are righteous, especially because you're trying to follow your code, your law, to perfection, because you can't. I hope you enjoyed the teaching. I did. I've learned a lot. We're going through John right now. If you did enjoy this teaching, you probably know somebody else who would really dig this. So I'm asking you, share it, text a link to somebody that you know would appreciate this, and until next time, blessings.